Okay, I assume I'm at part 4 of this test. Might be at part 5, I don't know. But I'm going to assume I'm part 4. But anyways, let's get on with this abomination. Alright, political compass test. Governments should penalize businesses that mislead the public. I agree, but kind of the thing. I don't know what you mean by mislead the public. Of course, if you're misleading the public about something related to their health or something of that nature, like if you're or even personal beliefs, for example, let's say you're a vegan and you buy a vegan burger and the burger has meat in it, then they misled you and that should be illegal. But I'm not going to strongly agree just because I know WWE used to do a lot of sexual content. For example, they would have like strip poker. They had extreme strip poker one time. They had these girls playing strip poker and they blurted out and they kind of led you to believe that it's the same thing with Kelly's expose. They used to say that, well, Kelly was going to take off her clothes and you could see, the goodies, let's put it that way. But the bottom line is this. They couldn't do that because of the network. And ultimately, you're seeing more than enough. And they're just trying to be edgy and they're trying to get that audience. But they also want to be cool. And I'm not against that. If you can do it, then I would say do it. But also, you don't know if the girl wants to do it. They might have some kind of moral or ethical issue with doing so or something. So that's a problem. But as far as health issues, like the corporations, the companies are misleading someone about something that could seriously affect their health. Like let's say a cigarette company tried to say they're going to improve the health of your lungs. That should be illegal. So I don't know. It kind of depends. I'm not going to say strongly agree, but I agree. Okay, a genuine free market required restrictions on the ability of a predator multinational to create monopolies. I'm against monopolies. I know you're going to have monopolies, but there should be some cap or limit to the monopolies. I think in the case of social media, maybe not so much in the case of YouTube, because they're not as bad as some social networking websites that are worse. But I'll just give you an example. I like Gab, for example, and I think Gab, first of all, they're anti-censorship. So if they censor someone, they probably deserve to be censored because they let all kinds of shit go in there. So they probably have a really good reason. But second of all, and same thing for BitChute, although I don't use BitChute because it's really complicated to use. And it's like, whatever. But, and also there was this weird thing one time when it was like they put Kenny Rogers' photo on a video I posted. And it's like, what the fuck? And I know nothing about Kenny Rogers other than supposedly he was really funny in real life. I don't know. But the point is, because he would just do crazy shit, or at least that's what they said about him. I know they made a lot of jokes about him doing crazy things. But, and again, I like the guy. I'm not dissing him. Don't get it twisted and try to, Kenny's may Kenny rest in peace. I have no problem with him. But anyways, the point is, I'm against multinationals like YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, anyone, anywhere, regulating speech, for example. So I think if you don't limit the growth of the website to the point where they can't create a Death Star, if you don't do that, then at the very least, you should fucking limit their ability to control what people can do on there. The same thing about CBS and MSNBC. There should have to be some indication they have to allow all viewpoints, not create a situation where you have CBS, for example, and other CNN and other groups having pretend bloggers and sociologists and social columnists and cultural columnists, whatever the fuck I'm trying to say. You don't create a situation basically where you have those people out there trying to say, no, social media shouldn't allow this viewpoint or that viewpoint. If someone, for example, called for the extermination of everyone who, for some reason, gets turned on by carrots, I don't know, then if you're turned on by carrots and they say, we should execute, that person should be not allowed on the internet because you should be allowed to be so. You're not hurting anyone and they're being violent, and that should not be allowed. That's hate speech. But it's not hate speech to say, you know what? And again, I totally disagree with this, and I am 100% pro gay marriage. But it's not really hate speech in terms of over the top, violent, out and out hate speech. It's not hate speech to say that, you know what? I'm against gay marriage. I disagree with you if you are, and I think you're a bigot. But you're not you're not violent. You're not threatening anyone's life. You're not saying they're all evil. You're not saying you should hate them. You know, so you can say that. So I mean, this is an example of what I'm saying. So like that needs to be controlled as far as you should not be able to censor someone for bullshit reasons just because you're a private corporation. And monopolies, you have like WWE, who they created a monopoly. Although at first supposedly they wanted legitimately, but for years, and I forgot who was the first to win it back from them. I think it was AEW maybe or someone else. But for years, WWE would not allow WCW and other companies, and I think what they eventually lost was the fact that these new companies, the ones that are still around, as new as some of them are, they're still already out of business. But again, because that's what monopolies do. But the ones that are still around, they created a situation where for years you could not go to Madison Square Garden unless you were the WWE. That's bullshit. So there should be some limitation of monopolies, absolutely, and it limits competition. It limits the ability to compete. You can't compete. It creates you end the competitor class and you begin with the predator class, where you have overreaching, too large to fail, too big to fail, larger than should be. Multinational corporations that are just like octopuses, creating weird tentacle porn, basically shoving their fucking tentacles into everything in your culture, and like your culture collapses, the country collapses. You can't have a culture that fucking way, because you basically end up with like an empire. You end up with an empire of corporations, and it's wrong and it's not right, and it totally fucks the small businessmen. And if you look at, in many cases, even with small businesses. You want to talk about taxpayers, even the small businesses, the same ones you talk about, well, you shouldn't be destroying their property in these riots, and I agree, but the point is, those small businesses are really being destroyed by paying way too much in taxes and overpaying in taxes, while massive transnational corporations are paying nothing, in some cases, in taxes, and even being given money. It's absurd, and it's bullshit, and it's fucked up, and there's no way these lower class businesses, small businesses, for example, let's say a PWG, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, can ever surpass or succeed more than a WWE or even an AEW now, because they're paying more taxes than they do. They're regulated, they're monopolized. They can't even rent out a bingo hall. These people are doing arena shows, and where they were before the coronavirus, anyways. But you're taxing these motherfuckers. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, and it's absurd. So no. I want to make a dirty joke here, even though it's probably against my better judgment. Again, you're running a strip joint called the Pink Taco. You should not pay more taxes than motherfucking Disneyland, but you would, because the entire tax system is fucked up. So let's say that. Anyways, a genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator. Yes. In fact, I strongly agree. I think I do, maybe not, but I'm gonna say I do. So you do require restrictions on predator multinational corporations, and not allow them to create the kind of monopolies, at least that we have seen in the last decade. It's gotten to be this, or maybe 2 decades, It's just gotten to be absurd, and we're really dealing with that as individual citizens now, in terms of free speech, in terms of our privacy rights, in terms of another number of things, and it's got to end. Okay, let's see. Now I look at some of your personal social values. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. I strongly disagree. Abortion should be legal, even when the woman's life is not personally threatened, up until 4 months. Some people would argue 6 months. I used to argue that, based on my understanding from scientists. It's probably more towards 4 months. But once the fetus develops into a human life, I do not think just because it is inside the woman, that gives you a right to destroy that now existing human life. On the other hand, under 4 months, it should be allowed and even paid for. I think a person should be able to have an abortion. Um, of course, certainly I agree with birth control, morning after pill. And again, some of these same people didn't support the morning after pill. They even wanted to allow um, people working at pharmacies and things not to provide women with the morning after pill. Obviously, you can't argue or say that we're for some reason we are not providing the morning after pill because you're killing a life. And what you're doing is you're ending the possibility of life, or you're ending the potential for life. Now, while I'm sympathetic to that in some ways, I'm against that, and I'm not recommending any woman has any abortion. But certainly, if you want to have an abortion, that should be your fucking right. And by that logic, there is truth in the fact that you couldn't even masturbate. If you masturbate, if you have sex with a condom on, that's technically the potential for life. So there's no real life here. There's no real life there. You're not killing a baby. And if you think you are, you're absurd and insane. And again, I hate to bring it back to circumcision, but you do allow that after they're born. Is that sexual assault? And I think it is anyways. But certainly if it isn't, and then that can kill children, it killed 119 or something last year, I think it was. So certainly if that's not sexual assault, then killing a fetus that hasn't even developed a human brain yet, and isn't even a human, and isn't even as big as a quarter in some cases, that's not a fucking murder. You're not killing a baby. Now, if you go past 4 months, then yes, I think, or possibly 6, I don't know, 5, 6, 4, wherever, whatever, you be the judge. I'm not, you be OBGYN, as I say. But yeah, after the point of 4 months, that should be illegal, and you should be criminally charged, and there should be federal charges, in my opinion, brought against you for murder. But before that, absolutely, you should have a right to have an abortion. All authorities should be Christian. Yeah, I agree. I agree. All authorities should be Christian. Actually, I strongly agree. I don't agree with a lot of bullshit. This is part of what's wrong with a lot of the left. You saw that the other day. I tried to make a video. I might have clusterfucked it a bit, or a little, but the entire video with the two people asking Kromsky to really defend voting for the lesser of two evils and or voting for Biden. And, you know, they, to some extent, Tim Ross came out and said that these people were idiots. They're children, they're childless, they're delinquent, they're immature, they're juvenile, they should go away, they don't know what they're doing. No, you don't get to decide that someone else should just go away or get to decide who the left is or who is in the left or who's professional or who's legitimate or authentic because you decided someone else was an idiot. You think that doesn't make it true. And questioning any authority is an evil. If they had questioned Stalin and Mao Zedong and Mao and other people, and even Lenin, although I'm not necessarily against Lenin, and I do support what you would say is the October revolutions and the revolutions that led to the formation of the original Soviet Union, although that never worked out, even if I didn't totally agree with even their beliefs. And I am a social democrat, but I did agree with the ideal of overthrowing authoritarian power. But if you had questioned many of these people, many of the executions and murders throughout history would not have happened. If you had questioned many of the things Ronald Reagan had done, and there was more objection to him in questioning of him, you would not have had, or more opposition and more disagreement with him, that you would not have had Reagan bombing people, creating wars in Latin America and Nicaragua, and bombing people, and bombing communities, bombing people, arming of Saddam under Bush and George Sr., Reagan and George Bush Sr. Then later on the Gulf War, and of course the bringing in of drugs, bringing in, is that song Reagan by I think Killer Mike. He made that song Reagan or whatever it was named. The bricks flew in on military planes with the CIA deals, bringing in cocaine during a war on drugs that had been raged since the 70s, even the 60s, putting people, especially and specifically and particularly Black Americans, in prison, and other Americans as well, but specifically and particularly Black Americans. If you did not have this not questioning those people, that would not have happened. If Trump's followers would question him now, much of the evil he has done would not happen. If the people like Tim Rise and Noam Chomsky that will not question Joe Biden more to the extent than they are because they don't like Trump, that would not happen. If Hillary's followers would question Hillary, if the fucking supporters, by the way, of the other feminist idiots who supported Anita Sarkeesian would have questioned her before she stole their money and ran off to the Bahamas or whatever the fuck she did with it. She basically stole their money and ran off with a guy. That's what she did. But if they had questioned her, hey, they still have some money, wouldn't they? The point is questioning 9/11, questioning the Afghanistan war, questioning the Iraq war. Had you questioned those people, if you would question those people, that evil would not be done. That would be evil undone in the world. That would help us. But you don't do that, so you have evil. You should always question everyone. Buddha said that. I believe to some extent, if I'm not mistaken, even Jesus said this. You always question authority. Do not believe anything you have heard, no matter who said it, even if I had said it. Think it out and work it out for yourself and come to your conclusion and hear multiple sources and come to your conclusion about what you believe. That is the Buddha. That is the original Gautama, whatever the fuck his name was, Buddha. That's the truth. Question authority. Let's see. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. I disagree. Mainly, largely, this comes back to the death penalty. I don't agree, for example, in the death penalty. Now, there are people that are so bad, some of them probably do deserve to be executed. I don't agree with the federal government executing people. I don't think we should give the government that kind of power over life and death and the power to as Charles Manson would say, distribute life and death. I don't think they decide that. I think that's God's responsibility. That is Mother Nature's responsibility. There are people that are very bad and they should be punished, and in a just, correct society would be and will be. But you don't get to execute people. And of course, there are people that want to execute pedophiles. I don't agree with that. I'm not saying I agree with them, but I don't. Same thing for rapists. Same thing for drug dealers. There was a time where Trump, before he started helping some of these people with their drug charges, and some people say he was talking about drug offenders who were guilty of murder. Maybe he was, and I don't know. But there was even a time where he was referencing and hinting at support, and basically always saying he supported the death or the execution of drug offenders. Now, I don't agree with that. So I don't agree. And again, so an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, to what extent, and where do you end and where do you begin that premise and that ideal? So I don't agree with that. I don't believe in the death penalty. I don't believe we have a right to kill someone. And the entire ideal is just something I don't agree with. And that can be extended into other issues, but primarily that one I don't agree with. So I don't believe in that. I disagree. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. I strongly disagree because, again, as we have seen, there is monopolization. There is shady things that happen. You have monopolies that form. You have selling out, as they say. You have buying off of musicians. You have people doing things strictly to make income. It is not, as Karl Marx would have said, you create, you make money to create art. You make money to make art. Instead, they make art to make money. And everything is about making that dollar, and a lot of it is garbage and trash, and people don't care so much anymore about creating art, creating something beautiful. Now, and this has been a while back, but I remember The Amazing Atheist, for example, talking about Rebecca Black and certain people talking about how horrible this is, how much it sucks. But that was to say, at least at that time, people would watch something and say, wow, that really sucks. And they would watch it because it sucked. But no one ever creates anything then or now because it's beautiful. And they haven't done that for a very long time. You don't see very much beautiful, authentic content. Even someone like a guy that I used to like, I think his name is Tom McArnold, whatever his name is. He made a song called White Boar. He made a song with his girlfriend. I can't think of the name of it. I'm Not Real or something about drug addiction. He made really good music. Even he's kind of, in my opinion, gone goofy with some of his shit. I'm not as big of a fan as I used to be. So I'm ending it there. But the point is, no, I'm going to answer that. I didn't answer it. I strongly disagree. You should sponsor art. I don't think something going broke because it doesn't make commercial dollar should lead to it totally going broke. Now, there might be some cases where that's true, but largely I don't agree with that. I think that people need art. We need art. We need original thought and content, and I don't agree with that at all. So that's my opinion.